Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney's The Marvels. So Disney decided to hire a director for The Marvels that hijacked a classic horror franchise called Candyman to take over this Marvels job, even though she had no experience in doing anything other than hijacking a classic franchise. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you. So this is coming from Forbes. Disney reveals a $270 million budget for the Marvels. Disney is filming a lot of their work in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has a very generous and lucrative rebate program where they give you back 25% of the budget that you spend on making films and TV shows there. And the reason that the UK does that is they want to bring business into the UK. It's salaries for people that work in the industry, but it's also security, it's catering, it's all kinds of expenses, and to them, it's worth it, so they do this program. So you're going to get a lot of business from Disney when you do that. They're going to bring their projects there. However, so far, their budget is $270 million on the Marvels. It's going to increase from there. I'm projecting $320 million. Why? Because basically, that's what they did with Indiana Jones. That's the direction Disney is going in. Disney doesn't have a focus on making money on their movies. It's kind of incredible to say that because Disney used to be known as a studio that was very tight with their budgets. They were very high concept and low budget, and they were successful doing that. They built their live action studio back up by doing that over time. And then priorities changed over at Disney. Most recently, they're only interested in social agenda. I have seen articles talking about how if you look at the numbers and you look at the expenses, then you could analyze and say, you know what, maybe Disney shouldn't keep Star Wars. It's not that profitable for them. Or maybe they shouldn't keep the Marvel brand. It's not that profitable for them. Well, look, it's got to be pretty apparent to most sensible people by now. Disney's profits are not so much what they're concerned about. They're concerned about owning and controlling social change and brands. They're concerned with not having any Marvel brands that represent what Marvel used to represent. They don't want to encourage any of the people that were encouraged by Marvel's movies to get excited about the projects and excited about the films. They're selling social change. They're not selling licensed products anymore. They're not selling movies and TV shows anymore. Sure, they're available for sale and they're in distribution, but everything they do is some kind of abuse of power. Let's get into this article from Forbes. I'd like you to see who they specifically decided, and you go ahead and say to yourself, how could they pick this person to do a Marvel franchise movie, particularly a difficult movie? Because Brie Larson's Captain Marvel movie was only successful because she was associated with the momentum tied in with Marvel and the Avengers back in the day. It wasn't a successful standalone film. So they bring this person in to do this project. See if this is the kind of person that you would bring in to solve the problem of, hey, we've got to make this sequel to Captain Marvel. It's got to be successful. It's got to somehow be good for the Marvel brand. So let's bring in this super crackerjack, incredible director to pull this project together. From Forbes, Disney has revealed that it spent more than $270 million on making The Marvels, the latest installment in its Marvel Comics superhero saga, which will be released in theaters in November. The reason we have these numbers is because Marvel creates a separate corporation every time they do one of their projects in the UK, and that way they can keep the expenses very clean and very separate from anything else they're working on. They can show that to the UK government. They have to file those numbers publicly because it's really the public that's paying this massive 25% rebate on production. But to Disney, it's worth it. So the movie is helmed by Nia DaCosta and stars Oscar winner Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, a former fighter pilot who gets superpowers from an alien artifact. She's joined by 21-year-old newcomer Iman Vellani, and Teyonah Parris, stars of Disney's acclaimed streaming shows Ms. Marvel and WandaVision. DaCosta is famous for directing the 2021 horror hit Candyman, which is a world away from the Marvels. On paper, it looks like a surefire hit, as the film is a sequel to 2019's Captain Marvel, which grossed $1.1 billion at the box office. So here's the first thing I look at and I say, okay, wait a minute. Was Candyman actually a hit? Because, okay, well, that, even if you had a hit horror film that was based on an existing rebooted franchise character like a Freddy Krueger type, hey, that's cool. I saw Candyman back in the day. It was a pretty good movie. Candyman did not make that much money, but it was kind of a cult hit, and it's been around a long time now. Most people who know horror certainly are going to know Candyman. Back in the day, it did $25 million worldwide. The Candyman reboot that Nia DaCosta was the director of did $77 million worldwide against actually a $25 million budget. Doesn't include the cost of promotion. However, of course, you can distribute this movie on additional platforms, streaming services. You can sell it in multiple formats, and now it exists in a library. Is that a successful project? Yes. Is that a hit? It's absolutely not a hit, not financially, not culturally. People really weren't talking about this project, or we would have heard of it. So it's not a hit. It's Nia DaCosta's project. But what really got my eye in researching this project was to kind of understand a little bit more about Nia DaCosta and what she's done in the past and what you can kind of expect to come from her. We'll see, because nobody's seen the Marvels yet. We've seen trailers, and there were definitely some people that reviewed Candyman, her version of it from 2021, and said they really enjoyed the movie. But if you look at the criticism, you can kind of wonder, like, what did she do with this franchise? And why would anyone see Candyman and then decide, oh, this is someone I need to hire? Coming from Adras Gregori, this supposed sequel to the 1992 original seems much more interested in criticizing the flamboyant and toxic Chicago art scene and delivering a social commentary on rampant racism in the same area, old and contemporary. The pick delivers a bunch of valid points on both counts, but the obvious side effect of this is that it makes a film feel mostly like an art scene dramedy and an anti-segregation drama. An anti-segregation drama? Absolutely. Of course, these are much more important topics than a fictional boogeyman terrorizing Cabrini Green, something that writer-producer Jordan Peele obviously knows well. Yet, hijacking a horror franchise for social commentary, however topical, feels a little deceptive and disappointing from an audience point of view. Even the very Candyman mythos is employed here as a means to make human rights points, so the acute horror elements are diluted and sidelined, not to mention attenuated throughout the plot. The pitch dark past of the US, a history of institutionalized slavery, abuse, and lynch mobs and burnings does need to be further dissected and exposed in film and art. Jordan Peele himself has been doing his part in this, and his stuff is commendable, except this one. Even if the original Candyman had a strong anti-racist message at its core, it was never sold as a socio-political drama, but as a horror film, and a skillful one too. Another criticism from Richard Claycomb. It's crazy to see history being rewritten by the producer and writers to serve their own agendas. Did they even bother to look into the history of Cabrini Green? It was not open to isolate blacks and tear down their public housing in some attempt to destroy them, as is stated in the movie. Cabrini Green was opened in 1942 and was mainly lived in by Italian immigrants who needed affordable housing near their factories and warehouses where they worked at very near the very expensive Gold Coast area of Chicago. The original rules stated that the housing would be 75% white and 25% black, so it's hard to fathom how the producer and writers came up with another story about it being intentionally built to house blacks in a destructive situation and then drive everyone out and sell the land to real estate developers. The characters in the movie state the area is just now for luxury apartment living, which is also not true, as some of the new buildings built have a certain number of income-based housing in them, along with the fact that only the high-rise buildings were torn down, which were used as protective towers by gang members who shot at police officers from the walkways and windows who were trying to respond to 911 calls made to the police about crimes happening in Cabrini Green. 2 Chicago police officers were killed during one such incident. Also, some of the original 2-story brick buildings, like the abandoned ones shown in the movie, were renovated and have stayed low-income housing. One can say this is only a movie, but if you are going to place your film in a real place, it really does nobody any justice by slanting the story to make it seem like no good was being done by the city of Chicago in trying to help poor working people in an integrated situation have affordable housing near their workplaces, and that someone in the late 1930s and early 1940s worked to create a dangerous ghetto situation in Cabrini Green and then sat it out for decades upon decades to tear it all down and make money off of it. The Marvels seems like it's going to be a complete woke disaster. It was bad enough to do Captain Marvel in the first place. It was bad enough to start it out as a Captain Marvel 2 sequel and then incorporate in these other Marvels characters so they could then call it the Marvels and it could be some woke woman fest. Now it's a slapstick sci-fi joke project being run by a director with no experience in doing anything like this except ruining an existing classic franchise. In business, you don't just randomly hire people to do projects, especially projects with $300 million budgets, which is on the very high end for movies like this. I mean, they could have tried to give her the next Avatar and turn that into some kind of a race thing if that became available. But other than that, giving her a $300 million Marvel movie to go ahead and ruin must have been the closest they could come to it. The only reason to put a director like this on a project like this is to focus only on social commentary, hijacking a brand, and demoralizing anyone left who was interested in anything from Marvel. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.